the market actually waited to see the direction of what the CBN will be doing, cutting a cue from reports that came out and people were advocating for increase in interest rates in the overseas. So they were also looking at what's going to be the consequence on emerging markets and particularly for Nigerian market as well. Another thing is that investors are also beginning to price in or gauge the Q2 results of those organizations as to see the impacts of the energy crisis on their financial statements and see whether they will be able to also replicate the same level of returns or the trajectory they had in Q1 as well. So
one of the things I quickly want to even ask is what's happening with CBN locking profits?
In recent times, CBN had brought out some certain policies to guide the banks. And one of the reasons is because, of course, you know that the banks, some of their profits are accrual as well. Some of them are also on extraordinary gains too. So if you have open exposures to some certain obligations that people are not really paying in, you are expected to charge in interest rates. However, those interest rates don't come in cash, which you have already accounted for. So you are not supposed to pay dividend from accruals.
Future earnings,
exactly. So
like
that is one of those things why they said no, you don't need to pay dividends as regards that. You need to clear your book. So it's not a lack of performance, it's just a prudential guidelines. The NGC pays a very good dividend. You will see that they were going to make it up for investors later on. Of course, MTN didn't pay dividend in 2023, in 2024, and they came back to pay interesting dividend as well in 2025. So these are temporary setbacks. And one thing I always encourage people is that if the fundamentals are right, if there is competence and management efficiencies around their financial statement, you don't need to worry. All right. It's just a temporary setback of which is going to build up back again for you.
So what are the other highlights from the financial service sector for this week ending?
In short, industrial currently year to date is about 110% year to date. So that was majorly moved by the cement industry because of the various constructions ongoing. All right. But it's a complementary product to the construction work, particularly the real estate developments that we currently have. So the paints are doing very well as well. So
they are doing a good job of that marketing because it's now looking like that stock, that IPO there's an hype around it. Because, you know, there's a lot going on. Every other day they are talking about it. Then $10 came out this week to say that he has to be rewarded for going to the refinery for about 22 or 25 times.
But one thing as professionals we will continue to advise is that once this thing is out, of course, it comes out with evaluations and the rest like that. So always consult, and they also put it there, always consult your professionals. And that's why we are there. Once they are done with the books and we start reviewing the books and the projection for their returns and the rest like that. So we'll begin to say, then we can be able to advise and say that this price is a favorable and interesting price. And don't forget that luckily we have its peers, the likes of Aramco, Saudi Aramco, some other listed refineries across the world. So we'll be able to also make projection and say that, if this can be doing X, Y, Z, then Dangote, which is the single largest complete train in terms of refinery. So you can also do this XY with the expansion plan of Dangote to go to 1.4 million barrels per day. So once it comes out, yes, you need to market your product ahead of time.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Broadstreet Update in association with SCM Capital. This is the show where we bring you everything about investment, wealth creation, financial independence at scale. And today I have with me my regular guy, my G, Jide Downsey, Head of Research at SCM Capital. So today we'll just want to go straight into it. But before we go, guys, I would like you to do something for us, okay? I don't know why we have not gotten to 5K followers on YouTube. We're just slightly, maybe a few hundreds away. Please, I'd like you to follow us across on YouTube and also follow us across all social media platforms at B360 TV and all the expressions showing on your screen, and also follow SCM Capital. Also, do well to also make an inquiry through the phone numbers that we have on the screen. If you have anything about investment, questions, queries, comment, please feel free to reach out. We're here for you. The reason why we do this is to be able to assist you and support you in your financial journey. Our desire is that everybody listening to us, by and large, will be able to achieve financial independence, because that's going to really help, us, our family, and the nation. Okay? So let's get straight into it. So, Jide, it's raining today. I hope it's raining money. Today's rain is very crazy, man.
Very, very.
But
of course, this week.
Yeah, it's nice. At least maybe farmers can be happy. I hope it doesn't lead to erosion and that leads to, messing up the farm. But otherwise, I think it's not bad. It's the start of the raining season.
Sure.
So is it raining in the markets? How's the week been?
Yes, the week has been very interesting as usual. Just that the trajectory this week or the momentum this week is somehow weak or very calm. Let me use that word, not weak, very calm. The reason had been because of the macroeconomic data that everybody is expecting, and also the policy direction of the Central Bank of Nigeria. So, of course, they made those policy pronouncements on Wednesday, where the CBN was able to profile some prospects to the economy in terms of the direction of the interest rates, where it's going. And you know that it's a very significant factor towards what's going to be happening in the capital market as well. So the market actually waited to see the direction of what the CBN will be doing, cutting a cue from the Fed the Fed meeting reports that came out, and people were advocating for increase in interest rates in the overseas. So they were also looking at what's going to be the consequence on emerging markets, and particularly for Nigerian market as well. Another thing is that investors are also beginning to price in or gauge the Q2 results of those organizations as to see the impacts of the energy crisis on their financial statements and see whether they will be able to also replicate the same level of returns or the trajectory they had in Q1 as well. So for this particular period, investors were also looking towards how they can rebalance their portfolio to be able to absorb any future shocks that will be coming into the market. But by and large, it's been very fair this week in the equities markets.
Okay, so let's pick let's pick each of the indices or the index like we normally do, rather. So one of the things I quickly want to even ask is what's happening with CBN locking profits? I saw a news regarding that. I didn't really fully read it.
Okay. Yes. In recent times, CBN had brought out some certain policies to guide the banks. And one of the reasons is because, of course, you know that the banks, some of their profits are accrual as well. Some of them are also on extraordinary gains too. So if you have open exposures to some certain obligations that people are not really paying in, you are expected to charge in interest rate. However, those interest rates don't come in cash, which you have already accounted for. So you are not supposed to pay dividend from accruals.
Future earnings,
exactly. So
like
that is one of those things why they said no, you don't need to pay dividends as regards that. You need to clear your book. So it's not a lack of performance, it's just a prudential guidelines, all right, as regards that. So they are not really locking in as based on performance.
Yeah, but people are hungry. Because he started with which of the banks?
Access
now he's
Bank,
not
then
looking
UBA.
like is an industry-wide phenomenon.
Yes. One thing we should also understand is that there is need for regulation across the board. So even when you are looking towards, of course, investors earn two ways. Okay, equity investors earn two ways: price appreciation, also dividend distribution. All right. So on price appreciation, as those stocks really done well, some of them have done 110, in likes of Zenith. Some of them have done 58, like GT. Some of them have done tremendously very well, above 20% on the minimum. So if you have gotten a price appreciation, dividend is just part of it for you to get a cash flow, and then this. So if for the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years trajectory, they've been consistently paying dividend. And currently, their financials is still very strong. It's just that the new policy says that you can't have this level of exposure and continue to throw out cash to investors. So you need to clear your books and do very well. So it's just a temporary setback for those banks. So even if investors are selling off, you find them coming back again because of the projections of those banks as well. So it's just a knee-jerk approach to, I was disappointed because I was expecting X, Y, Z and I didn't get that. So that was what actually happened.
But do you think that the investors are responding well to that overall?
Yes. Of course, yes, because bulk of those investors that reacted to that were retail investors, while the corporate investors or the HNIs and the rest, they understand the future of this particular situation and they know that dividend is just one side of the entire story, which is just, it comes once in a year or twice in a year. All right. So, and for Nigeria still pays a very good dividend. You will see that they were going to make it up for investors later on. Of course, MTN didn't pay dividend in 2023, in 2024, and they came back to pay interesting dividend as well in 2025. So these are temporary setbacks. And one thing I always encourage people is that if the fundamentals are right, if there is competence and management efficiencies around their financial statement, you don't need to worry. All right. It's just a temporary setback of which is going to build up back again for you on the short or medium term. So you're going to get that again.
Makes sense. So what are the other highlights from the financial service sector for this week ending?
Okay, so like I said, the major direction that major news that everybody was waiting for was the CBN direction in terms of the interest rates, and not just the interest alone, all other policy parameters like the asymmetric corridor. The asymmetric corridor talks about how they've been able to lend or borrow from CBN, with their surplus cash, or even if they have deficits. So, and that guides them into what's going to be the short-term rates for them in case they want to come into the markets or whatever. Then we also have the CRR as well, which are all policy parameters for the banks to use to guide against their operations and the money supply in the economy. So they look towards that and see whether the CBN will be making a decision that will guide them ahead of time in terms of what the interest rates will be on a short term, medium term, based on the inflation that we currently having. So that was the major highlights of the banks. All right. And coming from the fact that they just completed their recapitalization as well. So who had those that the CBN is now going to come with their sledgehammers and the rest like that. So all of those things were impacted the financial service for this particular week. All right. But of course, as they were able to scale all of those orders and the realities were able to meet up with the expectations as well.
Okay. So energy sector, what's happening? Again, I bought fuel twice this week and I'm still checking.
Yeah.
Man, the retail price is still around 1.3. I bought 1.316 yesterday. Like just when is this going to be over? And what's the implication? On one end, maybe the people playing the stock, the energy stock will be happy.
Yes.
But people that are buying at the pump will be hungry.
Angry, of course. Yes.
You get what I mean?
Yes.
But so I would expect that it's still upward trajectory for even without the whole Middle East crisis, the oil sector where they were actually, or the energy sector generally, they were in good trajectory.
Of course, yes.
But of course, this just accelerated their growth.
Exactly.
And surpassed maybe whatever was projected.
Yes, their revenue projection. Exactly. Yes. In the last 2 years, most of them have gone through other acquisitions like the Ajib earnings, for O&O, the surplus mobile non-international, and the rest like that. So that has also expanded their capacity, all right? And you'll be seeing that impact growing in or building up in their margins as well. So then contributed to that is also the crisis in the Middle East that taking the oil price for about year to date is about 78% in terms of the price rally. All right. So that is impacting on their financial statements. And for us to understand how long this will take depends on the agreement between US and Iran. Just recently, they were still talking about tolling the Straits of Hormuz, which is the contributing factor. That's the shock point
Yeah.
for the oil movement. So as long as this thing lasts, the impact will even linger for that, right? Because oil prices is a future contract. Okay, so when you sell now, you wait until the next 30 days or 90 days and the rest like that. So all of those things will build back into their financials. So as investors continue to enjoy what is happening in that environment, the retail side or the buyers are the ones bearing the brunt, and that feeds back into inflation and the rest like that. And then the major news as well is Elomelu coming into the board of Seplat. All right, he bought some quantities. Interesting that. So he will be joining the board of Seplat very soon. So that is also a major news to the oil and gas in terms of how Elomelu will be able to improve the prospects of Seplat. The whole handle is expected to also come out with their right issue as well. So recently this week was from last week and this week, we saw the price rallying for about 20% in recent weeks, owing to that particular announcement. So that has moved the oil and gas in that respect. However, investors are beginning to get worried as regards the full year audited reports and the dividend distribution of Haradel. Right, the report had lingered for a while now. It was supposed to have come out in March, and it's not out yet. So they came out with the facts that by the end of this month, that they will be bringing out that reports, and that will guide investors as to what their performance has been, and then what they can also do in the future. So that's why.
That makes sense. So I want us to segue into two industry this week, not going through the regular, which is, the agricultural sector.
Okay.
So, the Presco and the rest. Are they faring in the market? I know, of course, they've been having back-to-back year-on-year growth in the last 2-3 years. People are really buying the stock and coal. Are they still maintaining that momentum? And what should we expect probably in the next 6 months for those agricultural stocks? All
right. So for Presco and Okomo, they were expanded. Even Ila Lakes as well is also part of that. They've increased the likes of, I think Okomo had to buy Ghana palm oil, a major field like that, almost 11,000 hectares. Yes, so Presco is also doing significantly very well. So that sector is very interesting. However, the federal government also reduced the import tariff on the importation of palm oil. So that is going to also drag a little in terms of what their financials will look like. But in the real sense, even the major oil palm producers cannot service the domestic consumption or the requirement, demand in Nigeria. So give or take, they will still be in good book. It just depends on how they've been able to manage their production and how they've been able to construct some irrigation around the plants and the palms and the rest like that. So they're still in good book and they're still in good outshare because Nigeria is a consumption or a consumer economy, right? And in a consumer economy, the demand will continue to improve by the day. It's not just to use their products for almost immediate consumption. They use it for soap as well, use it for so many other things as well. So as we continue to see buying capacity improving, you will see them as well doing very well going into the future, all right? However, their price seems to be off the radar for investors for, I think for Presco, 3,000, 2,300 naira. So investors are looking towards what's the upside for me in Presco as against what is the possibility of having a better rally in some of these low cap or medium cap stocks as well. So that is what has impacted them. But in terms of their financials, they are very good.
So the other question now would be, I want us to also look at the health stocks.
Yeah.
Because it's like we don't talk about it, and knowing how things are in this nation with health, what's happening in that space, and are there new entrant or newcomers that we should be expecting?
Okay, for now, no new company sector coming in now, all right? So, however, they have a huge challenge the last time because bulk of their products is actually imported as well. So they had a challenge with FX, which had been significantly taken care of as we speak. They are doing well now. I think Fitsin is around 130 naira it had moved from over 50. In short, when they did their rights issue, it was 55 naira, sometimes in December. So that shows that investors are also building some particular interest, significant interest in that particular industry. So it's a good industry as well to venture into. However, they are just coming up, and investors also will have to be very cautious of the liquidity in that environment and how the FX would continue to impact them going into the future. If there is a challenge within the FX environment, they will have a hit on that.
But overall, what's the outlook in terms of, so if you're saying buy, sell, or hold, what will you say?
Okay, for now it's a hold on them because they've already trading far above their valuations, and it's a hold. So for now it's a hold.
So do you think that is applicable to breweries? This whole FX shock, or I believe it's like the breweries are doing well.
No, the
brewery stocks. Because more people are drinking. From what I know, what I'm even hearing is that the challenges pushing whiskey and all the brands. So at best, people are taking vodka or gin, the locally made ones on one end, but people are taking a lot of stout, a lot of beer. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
so I think they are not doing badly.
Yes. First of all, of course, yes, they were impacted in 2023, 2024 when we had that liberalization or devaluation in the currency. However, most of them have done the backward integration. They've substituted some of their key products for locally made, like barley. They don't source for, most of them don't source for barley now. They source for sorghum here in Nigeria. So that has impacted their financials positively. Then when you look at the nature of those who now patronize their products as well, taste is changing by the day. So that's why people are now moving towards the beer sector. But one thing you need to also understand is that for the brewery sector, their product is more like seasonal. Hardly will you see people drinking more during the rainy season than in the dry season. So that is a major downside for that particular environment. But we know that by Q3, Q4, election season, parties, and the rest like that, they will come up again in terms of what they are doing. So there's still lots of things happening in the beer sector.
Drinking is seasonal.
Yes,
if you drink now.
Yes, of course. Hardly will people
maybe
want to drink hot or
maybe start of the month people drink, middle of the month they don't drink, end of the month they collect salary
depending
and drink.
on the season, because sometimes you want to drink chilled beer and you know that there is cold, so you wouldn't want to drink during cold. Maybe anyway. So I don't know. I don't drink anyway.
I don't drink beer.
So I don't. So sometimes like that, and you know that. Some seasons, some people don't do parties, and you know that these drinks are in high demand during party periods and the rest like that. So maybe they are always affected by seasons in that space.
So let's look at the industrials. Like maybe we can count Beggar Paints, Cap.
Yeah.
As how they faring nowadays.
All right, so the real estate development that impacted them positively, people changing their paints, some doing a whole lot, just constructing and doing that. Okay, so they are doing very well. In short, industrial currently year to date is about 110% year to date. So that was majorly moved by the cement industry because of the various constructions ongoing. All right. But it's a complementary product to the construction work, particularly the real estate developments that we currently have. So the paints are doing very well as well. So it's a good industry.
On the long run now, let's look at even say on the medium term, what are the likely shocks that could come in? Is it going to be, do you think they will have a stable run in the medium term? Well, by default, our FX is a bit stable.
Yeah, sure.
So taking a FX, what are the other potential blind spot that should be taken care of that could really rattle that sector?
For now, I don't think there is any, because like you said, the FX is stable and the policy around the FX gives free entry, free exits, or transparency, liquidity in that environment. So if they can get that pass through, the only major shocks that they could be expecting is the buying capacity of the people, all right? Would they be able to buy? Would they be able to renew their paintings? How often would they be able to do that? The real estate development is very, very significant. Even the road construction is boosting the real estate development as well. So on the medium term as well, we don't know how other things being equal. They are still in a good position in Nigeria as we speak.
So insurance, has anything significant happened in terms of improvement?
Most of them are now.
That you mentioned like a few weeks back that insurance have been going through their own patches, rough patches, and as things improved now?
Yes, more likely it's improving by the day. Their Q1 result is out. Some of them made some good returns. And right now, most of them are now in the market for their right issues, for public offers and the rest like that, okay? And they are projecting that with the new inflow of cash for them in terms of what they will be receiving from their various recapitalization exercise, that will also support their investment income and the rest like that. So for them, they still have a very good prospects. And this is particularly the time where they have to also pay high premium because of maybe rain, accidents, and the rest like that. But give or take, they are also fine. As at 2 weeks ago, they were able to turn their reds to green, currently around 7% year to date now, when they were coming from far red. So it showed that investors are beginning to see prospects going forward in that particular industry. And again, what is also moving investors is the direction of returns. Where would the return be? How would what was the prospects for the future of all those organizations? And if regulation is very firm, and if the economy is improving by the day, then you see that everybody begins to key into that respect. All right. Then one major thing that investors are also in terms of the economy, the confidence is returning gradually into the economy. The S&P ratings, which came out on Friday last week, moved Nigeria from B- to B with a positive outlook. So what that tells investors, local and foreign investors, is that the economy is beginning to be promising. It's promising and it's improving by the day. So, and you will see that impacts in organizations as well that are domiciled in that economy. So.
Makes sense. So let's look at top gainers this week averagely. I'm checking. I'm sure mostly maybe as of yesterday. So again, because we have to make sense out of all this data, right?
Okay.
Learn Africa gained. That comes. I'm seeing Sovereign
Insurance. That's insurance.
Yeah. Sovereign is the Nigerian Brewery, RT Briscoe.
Yeah.
UPL. For Nigerian breweries, you can almost project what's driving that and co. But outliers are like Learn Africa. At times some of these activities are just for cash out purposes. And
exactly.
The market go down for a long time again. But is there something we don't know that?
A couple of them are coming out with their AGMs and their board meetings as well. So from there, you'll begin to see holders of those stocks looking towards what has been discussed in the AGM and how can we position ahead of what's going to be happening as when those things begin to settle in. Okay, so that's a major thing that has been moving them in terms of their price rally. All right. I think, for example, Seplat said that they are going to be paying not less than $1 billion in terms of dividend going forward. So it showed that investors will now begin to see what's the expansion drive, what's going to be driving that huge dividend payout in the next 5 years and the rest like that. So those who are quite proactive will begin to, okay, fine, we need to start taking position in some of these stocks. So that's what is happening as well in some of those low cap stocks too, where their AGM, their board members haven't received their dividend, will need to see places to redeploy that dividend into. That's what's basically pushing those prices.
Makes sense. So one major thing that also made the news this week is Dangote
Refinery
now
IPO.
saying finally that is around September.
Yes, sir.
One of the things I'm also looking at is that I think they are doing a good marketing. They are doing a good job of that marketing because it's now looking like that stock, that IPO is here. More like there's an hype around it. Because there's a lot going on. Every other day they are talking about it. Then $10 came out this week to say that he has to be rewarded for going to the refinery for about 22 or 25 times. That's so he has pre-requested for $100 million US dollars.
That's a private placement. Yeah.
I just hope at the end of the day is what it sorts when it comes out and people buy, because the hype is looking too much to me now at this point.
Sure. But one thing as professionals we will continue to advise is that once this thing is out, of course, it comes out with evaluations and the rest like that. So always consult, and they also put it there, always consult your professionals. And that's why we are there. Once they are done with the books and we start reviewing the books and the projection for their returns and the rest like that. So we'll begin to say, then we can be able to advise and say that this price is a favorable and interesting price. And don't forget that luckily we have its peers, the likes of Aramco, Saudi Aramco, some other listed refineries across the world. So we'll be able to also make projection and say that, if this can be doing X, Y, Z, then Dangote, which is the single largest complete train in terms of refinery. So you can also do this XY with the expansion plan of Dangote to go to 1.4 million barrels per day. So once it comes out, yes, you need to market your product ahead of time. And once it comes out, people should be able to look at the prospects of these organizations in the future. So,
but how soon do you think it's coming out with the price now?
He said it's September.
No, the price. No, the IPO is September.
That's when it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when you will know the price.
Have you guys simulated anything around how the price point will look like?
Yes, we're still working around the various informations we have, the peer comparison and the rest like that. But, that can be disclosed now until all those things are...
So that they don't go and quote you and you'll be in trouble.
So, so we are all still simulating and working towards what's going to be the likely price for that. But of course, there's informations around listed refineries within the same capacity range. You can begin to see what are they trading at, and then what is going to be the likelihood of Dangote refineries as well, what's going to be trading at.
Okay, so let's quickly just look at the hospitality stock. It's almost like they're quiet nowadays, or is it me that I'm thinking in that direction? By that, I mean, you remember 2 years ago, Transcorp was really rallying and co. It's like everything has gone a bit quiet now. Then the Ikeja Hotel, it's almost like they are doing their thing quietly. That's what I'm saying. Of course, there's notes. We don't have so many stocks.
Stocks, sure. In that space, exactly. Yeah, and then this is liquidity is the challenge within that particular space. So most of the times you just see a one-off, maybe somebody trying to change, buy more into his own position, maybe some of the directors and the rest like that. So, and when you look at the evaluations as well, so you want to ask what dividend are they going to be paying? Is not really worth it. So that's why people really don't there's no buzz around that particular sector. So it's not that they're not doing well, but how many people are launching now? And then those are big hotels, but there are some other younger ones which are around, and people are patronizing them, but they are not listed as well. So that's what is happening around the hospitality business.
So generally, what should we look out for in the new week as we begin to wrap up?
Okay, so next week, investors will be doing what we call the portfolio rebalancing because it's the end of the month. They'll be looking at where they are heavyweights and what's the prospects for the future. If the agreement between US and Iran is signed in terms of the peace deal, Trump was saying that it's on the borderline. So if the agreement is signed, that will ease the pressure around the global economies, and that will also spiral down to our own market as well. So investors will be looking at, if I've made enough gain here, I need to have a profit taken within around some of the stocks, and looking at the cash that they also have. They also want to look at, we need to buy more into this static stock. So next week is going to be also a mixed performance in the equities market. It will be greatly determined by the outcome of the situation in the Middle East, how the oil price would either accelerate or actually decline. And that will feed in back into the markets generally. Then the yield is still relatively very flat. The government did a bond and a treasury bill auction. And so with that, they're still saying that there's no attractive or no juicy attraction within the fixed income market. So investors will also look at and say, oh, fine, I need to still hold cash or play in the equities market. For the portfolio managers, particularly the PFAs as well, this is going to be their season where they will receive lots of cash in terms of, because salaries will be paid and some will channel some into the pension. So they also will be coming to the market and see where they need to play as well in the market. And you can tell that they will always be playing around the bank, industrial, and also a little from the oil and gas as well. So it's going to be a mix of situation. However, you need to consult professionals to be able to guide you through where the momentum will be switching to, so that you don't miss out in any of the opportunities, or you don't get bonds when people are selling off their position in some areas.
So I think this is the part where we'll also now talk about the fact that, please, guys, make sure that there's a contact on your screen that for SCM Capital you can always call. I keep emphasizing, you don't have any business trying to go it alone. Get an investment partner. And for me, I know that they're a very reliable investment partner because I use them. So please don't try to do some of this thing on your own, because at times you don't even know, maybe a stock is rallying because, just like you said, like a director is trying to increase his stake or something. Then you go and, it's rising, top gainers and co. You never can know that it's just a one-off. And maybe before that cycle comes again, is the next 1 year when they are trying to cash out again and all of that. Guys, this is where we wrap it up on another episode of the Broadstreet Update in association with SCM Capital. So make sure you follow us across all our social media platforms, the B360, and also on the SCM Capital across all social media platforms. And make sure, like we said, visit the website, call the number on your screen for every and any investment advice that you may have. I'm sure they will be able to guide you through. So Jide, do have a nice weekend. Take coffee if you do. It's Friday anyway. So yeah. So we'll see you on another episode next week. Right. Take care and keep winning.
Thank you.
Thank you.